Full disclaimer, this is not a full training session. That would be very tricky in a quick 1 hour webinar with everybody. But today we want to touch on kind of some high level things, some best practices, as Luke mentioned. So number one, why would you want to issue your receipts through Andar? So some key reasons I have noted here. Number one, each transaction that is receipted is actually stamped as receipted. You can see on the transaction itself when it was receipted, and that makes sure that it doesn't get receipted again. So none of that manual tracking of what's been receipted and what hasn't. Andar takes care of all of that for you. Okay. Andar will only receipt a transaction once, but there's an easy way that you can issue a duplicate receipt if a donor reaches out and says, hey, I lost my receipt. Okay. A copy of the receipt and a communication log, if you so desire, are saved to the account for easy access. So again, if you need to reissue that receipt, if staff internally want to confirm that the receipt was sent or what the receipt said, that's easy to find on the account. No more manual mail merges. You can have Andar do that for you. Andar can create the PDFs and it can even email them out. And that's my final point. You have the option to print and mail those receipts, or you can have Andar email them to your donors. Okay, so we're going to talk through those a little bit more. So issuing your receipts through Andar, we still have some customers who are doing receipts manually. Highly encourage you to find out what you would need to do to make the switch to issuing them through Andar for all of these reasons. We also have a number of donors who still extract a spreadsheet and generate the receipts from that. With the tools that are built into Andar, there's a much easier way for you to do this. Okay. So who gets receipted? Some things I want to flag to you that we often get help desk tickets from. Only payments are receipted. So Andar does not issue a receipt for a pledge. That would be a thank you letter or acknowledgement. But rather, Andar looks at what has been paid and when was it paid. Okay. Second thing to consider, not all transaction types are receivable. So here on the side there, I have a screenshot of a transaction attribute table, where if you look over on the right, it says receivable, and this is checked for employee to be billed transactions. So if you are trying to generate receipts and somebody's not pulling in that you're thinking should be pulling in, it may be that the transaction type that you're using isn't actually eligible for a receipt. And Andar does that on purpose just to make receipting easier for you. But it is really important that you understand how the different transaction types you are using behave. So for example, workplace special events typically aren't receivable because your donor is getting something in exchange for their gift, whereas an individual fully paid is almost always receivable. So that transaction is set to receivable. So understanding that, taking a look when you're deciding what transaction types to use to see if you need to be generating a receipt or not. Okay? And then finally, there are some custom settings on the transaction itself. So there's another little tiny screenshot down at the bottom there. And don't worry, you guys will have access to this PowerPoint afterwards, where it says who should actually get the receipt. So if it's different than the person who is on the original pledge payment, maybe the gift is coming from one account, but a different account needs to be receipted. You can indicate that here. The receivable amount, if not the entire amount is receivable, you can do an override on the transaction that says, well, they gave $1,000, but they got $100 worth of goods and services, so only $900 of the gift is actually receivable. You can enter that here. If there's an external receipt number, so maybe another tool issued a receipt, but you want to generate a receipt as well that matches, you can enter that. You can also, and this is really important this time of year, receipt selection date. Okay, so if anybody has ever, gone away for Christmas holidays, come back on January 3rd and you open the mail and there are 20 checks in there for people who tried to get their donation in before December 31st to get it in the 2025 tax year, but you are entering that gift and depositing it in January, You don't need to change your accounting and processing dates. You can put receipt selection date of December 31st so that this person will be issued a receipt for 2025 rather than 2026. So that is the easiest way to put those in. Put your receipt selection date, your receipt date, so that they are in the 2025 calendar year, so that when you're generating the receipts, those people are included. All right. And that piece right there was a big reason we wanted to get this in December before you guys have to deal with that first week back in January. There's also a generate receipt flag on each transaction. So again, the transaction type will determine whether that is turned on or off by default. But when finance is processing that gift, they can choose to turn that on or off manually for a specific transaction. Okay. That becomes important too when we are importing gifts from other third-party tools. I know in Canada, Canada Helps is a big one where it's processed by a third-party processor. The donor's already been receipted. We want to put it in as an individual fully paid, but we don't want to issue a second receipt. So when we do that import, we can actually have a column in our import that unchecks that generate receipt flag so that we don't accidentally receipt them twice for the same gift. Okay. Before we move off of this slide, do we have any questions about any of those pieces? Luke, anything that's come in?
Nothing that has come in so far.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so what do they receive? And we're gonna take a look at this in Andar in just a moment as well. So in Andar, highly encourage you again, instead of just extracting a list of who needs to be receipted, to learn how to create templates. Okay, your template can be as simple as a form letter or as complicated as a triplicate receipt with various subtables. Important when you are building out your template to use note variables. Okay, the note variables allow you to pull information specific to that donation and that donor, and it just allows you to simplify your template so that you're not having to have 20 different templates for different scenarios. You can use, 2, 3, 4 templates and cover just about everything because the note variables are flexible in what they pull in. Okay. You have the option to apply a style sheet. Again, many of our customers will actually print their receipts on pre-printed letterhead, and the style sheet might not be as important. But we have other donors who have us help them with a style sheet that actually puts their logo, their banner, a footer, images, things right into the letter so that when they generate the PDFs themselves have all of that. Another scenario where we often get asked to adjust things in style sheets is if you are using window envelopes and you want the name and address of the person to always display correctly in the window. Heiko is brilliant. Anybody who hasn't worked with her, she is absolutely brilliant, will often help me to figure out how to space it using the style sheet so that that letter component with the address will always show correctly in that window envelope. Okay, so a couple key reasons you might want to consider a style sheet. You can also assign a code. So if you have multiple different campaign accounts, you can have a different letter for a different campaign. So for example, your regular annual United Way campaign, you can have one receipt template. But then if you have a disaster relief campaign, that one's been a big one over the last couple of years, you could have a separate receipt template with different language that would automatically generate for anybody who gives through that campaign. If you have Executive Plus, there is also a way that we can assign custom codes based on source code, transaction type, etc. Again, that's a little bit more of an advanced feature, but just know that that is possible if that's something you do a lot. The code is not complicated. That is something, unfortunately, be billable. But once you've got it, you can usually manipulate it to do a few different things so you don't have to pay for it year over year. Okay. Any questions about these before I jump into actually what the template looks like and what I mean by note variables?
We do have a sort of general question here of, does the ongoing year-round receipting replace year-end tax receipts?
Okay, so most of our customers choose one or the other. So some of our customers they'll run the receipts job monthly, for example, rather than waiting until the end of the year and doing everything in January. Some of our customers have e-receipting turned on, which is in the notes at the end of the presentation, but highly encourage that as well. If you're using ePledge for your individual donations on your web page, you're using it for employee giving, Andar can actually issue the receipt in real time. So you don't even have to worry about issuing it. It just goes out to them as soon as their gift is processed and paid. Um, the bigger thing is that you have a system that works for you. And again, remember, Andar is going to stamp the transaction to say it's already been receipted. So if you're issuing receipts monthly and you come to January, you could then run a full system. Now give me anything that was paid in 2025 that hasn't yet been receipted to finish off the year and make sure that you filled any gaps that are there. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions there, Luke?
Uh, no, that is good.
Okay, awesome. All right.
I do want to mention for anyone, we are on a new platform as well. If you do have a question, it should be in the lower right-hand corner. There should be an Ask Question button as well. Sorry.
No, awesome. Okay, so I did want to hop into Andar because I don't want to just be a complete talking head the entire time. So, what do I mean by create a template? In Andar, under Finance, Receipts, Tax Letters, there's an option here for receipt template maintenance. Okay, and I mentioned that a receipt can be as simple as a form letter. That one is not a simple form letter. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, that one's also not, that one's pretty complicated too. Let's just start fresh. And let's say this is a simple one. Okay. So when I go in, if you think of it, anybody who's ever done a mail merge in Word, you would put in exactly what you want your letter to say. So dear, and then we've got some different note variables, common variables. So common variables are things like the person's name, the date, things like that, that are fairly universal. Okay, so maybe I want to put their name in there. All the details of my letter. And thank you for your payment of, and that's where we would look at the other note variables that are specific to our receipts. Okay, so you're going to see different details in here. So what was their payment amount, their payment type, what's their receipt number. Important to note, receipt number does not exist until we actually issue the receipts. So if you're running a preview, it's just going to show like XXXX. It's not that it's broken, it's that the system creates that receipt number when you actually issue the receipt so that they're all unique. So you've got these different note variables that you can choose. So let's say this is the receipt amount. I've got that in there. And add all of your other details. If you want to add digital signatures, maybe your CEO signs off on them, etc., you can attach those image files here as well. And then you can insert them over here. So anybody who's ever created an email template in Andar or a template for any other type of letter, thank you letter, etc., the functionality is exactly the same. Okay. Then we get into the style sheet. Again, the style sheet is what makes it pretty. We do have a number of style sheets that you can grab from our website, including an updated United Way Worldwide 2025 receipt style sheet. And on those style sheets, you can swap out your logo if you would like. It's just a general brand. Do have kind of a neat one that I would like to show you. So in Canada, it's preferred that you offer a triplicate receipt template. So can you imagine creating this in a Word doc and trying to do this manually? It'd be a bit of a nightmare. So what we did was we created the shell, and then Kaiko created a really awesome receipt style sheet for us that pulls in other specific information and it creates it in triplicate. A number of our Canadian customers have been able to borrow this style sheet so that we can deliver it with much less PS, because they all use a very similar format. And we're just swapping out minor details. Um, so again, very simple letter format to something more complicated like this, and pulling in those letter components. Okay, so that's our letter template, our style sheet to make it pretty or line up in a specific way. Do make sure that as you're working through, you preview it. Unfortunately, the preview isn't always 100% accurate. So before you actually issue your receipts, you'll also want to run a preview from the receipt maintenance window. Okay. So step number one, make sure you understand your transactions and how your transactions are being entered in the systems so that you are being flagged to create the correct receipts. Number two, create your receipt templates and really clearly identify who should be getting which receipts. At which point, if it's helpful, you can also do a receipt template association. So anybody who goes to my 2025 annual campaign is getting the Oxford receipt, and anybody else is getting sample receipt. Okay. And again, that can be further customized by Executive Plus, but it's requires having the Executive Plus module. So fairly straightforward setting up. What year, what campaign account, and which receipt code, which just pulls from the actual receipt template. Okay. Any questions about those? Again, not intended to be a full training today, but just show you the basics of what you would need to set up. Any new questions, Luke?
Yeah, we have, can designations be included in the receipt template?
Yes, they sure can. And there's actually a couple of ways you can do that. One that I would recommend, if everybody only had one designation, we could just insert a note variable within our receipt template, and it would be great. Unfortunately, often people will have more than one, which can then get a little bit messy. So you also have these receipt components that you can insert. The benefit of a receipt component is if there is information to pull in, it will pull it in. If there isn't information, it will get rid of the white space. So I'm going to go back and show you how this works with designations, but focusing on an address label. If anybody has ever done a Word doc mail merge, again, if I have name one, name two, address line one, address line two, city, state, zip code, if somebody doesn't have address line two in my Word doc, there's a big weird white space in my document that I have to manually go in through and clean up. Letter components, tell Andar, pull all of this information in the way that I've told you to and insert it into the letter. But wherever there are blank fields, get rid of that white space for us. So it just cleans that up. The application as it works with designations is that we can pull in a designation table. Let's just make one. So designations. Okay, and we're going to pull in a table. And there is an option here for your designations. Of course, I can't find it. I stand corrected, Jennifer. Your designations do not pull into your receipts. They pull into your thank you letters. The receipt is only for the actual recognition of the amount paid. So it looks at the payment transactions, whereas designations live on the original pledge transaction, which are not always the same. So I stand corrected. I was like, why don't I see my designations table? That's for thank you letters. So those are separate functions. The thank you letter operates based on the pledge amount, and the receipting is based on the payment amount, and designations are not associated with payments. So no, you cannot pull designations into your receipts. I stand corrected. I corrected myself. Okay. Any other questions there, Luke, that we want to focus on?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Where this table might still come into play is if somebody has had 5 different payments during the year and you want to itemize all of the different donations they've made in one receipt, again, you can use a table, or they gave through different organizations, etc. You can put those in. So maybe I want their transaction number. I want the total payment and receipt date. I have to fight with it. Receipt detail. Anyway, so yeah, you would create a table. Then if there isn't anything to report, it would just have the one line. But if they had, say, 5 different payments, it would show them as a table. So it would minimize the amount of white space that you have there, causing confusion. Okay. So again, very quick high level on templates. Switching back to our PowerPoint. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Oh, it wanted me to start back. Sorry, we're just learning this new platform for our webinar, so we're getting there, ironing out the kinks. Okay, best practices for actually running your receipts. So let's say you've got all your transactions entered correctly, you've got your template set up the way you want it, and you've told the system who should get what types of receipt templates. Use saved parameters. Okay, so there are a few key steps to generating receipts, and we're going to walk through them in just a second. But number one, we're going to create receipts. Create receipts means create a list of those accounts that should be getting a receipt. Okay, there are a whole bunch of different checkboxes and options that you can choose from. When you find the selections that work for you for a particular run, save those parameters so you don't have to remember all the checkboxes each time. Okay. Review the receipt data before you actually issue the receipts. Okay. That's going to save you a lot of time cleaning up the PDFs. And it also makes sure that if you are sending your receipts out by email, that they are correct and clean and you don't have typos and things like that in them. Consider emailing rather than sending by post. If you are set up to send emails out from Andar, you can tell Andar to issue the receipt by email. If no email address is found on the account, Andar will automatically just generate a printable PDF for you. Okay, so you don't have to pick through them all separately and say, who do I want to email, who do I not? You would highlight all of the accounts that you want to issue, tell it to email them. If it can't email them, then it would just create the PDF for you. And create a communication log. There's a checkbox we're going to look at in just a moment. Adding that just means that it's going to add a comm log saying that the receipt was issued. It's going to attach a copy of that PDF. It just puts all of the communications and contact points that you have with a donor in one place. So maybe not everybody on your team knows where to go to look to see if a receipt has been issued, but most staff should be familiar with communication logs. So it just creates, again, that one spot where they can find everything they need. Okay. So from there, we're going to switch back. There we go. Okay, so back to my other screen. So once we have our template set up, we're going to run create receipts. Again, ton of different options here. So where we can say, I want to produce 1 receipt per receipt account. If I donated 20 times in 2025, I just want to issue 1 receipt for them, or I want to do 20 separate receipts. What's my cutoff? So I have all of these different settings. Again, in a 1-hour webinar, we're not going to go through all of them. But if you ever have questions about them, they are outlined in our support center. We definitely arrange training for you. Or if it's a setting in particular, or you're not getting the results that you want, reach out to our help desk and just ask the question. Let us know what parameters you're using and what problem you're running into, and we'll do our best to troubleshoot for you. Okay. But maybe I have a group of people that I want to send a particular receipt to. So maybe anybody over $1,000, they get a specific receipt template. I don't have that flexibility with my code associations. So I can run this job here. Again, my date range, and this, we want to use this here, the receipt selection date. Remember what I said about those gifts coming in January? We want them to get receipted for their gift in December, so it falls into 2025. So we're going to use that instead of our accounting date. Okay. And here again, we can say that our cutoff date is December 31st. We can choose a specific campaign type, specific transactions. Again, even though employee payroll is here, by default, employee payroll is not receivable. So they would only pull in if you had checked the box manually on those transactions that you want to generate a receipt, or you chose one of the employee payroll generate receipt transaction types. And yes, there is a special transaction type for that. Okay. And you can even narrow it down by payment type. So maybe I only want to receipt my cash donations right now, etc. But a whole lot of selections here. And maybe you have a few different groups that you want to send out. So you want to send out anybody who has $1,000 gift, and then everybody else gets a different template. On our general tab, don't forget there are tabs up here. So there's more information to be found here. What receipt year am I doing? Okay. What's the receipt date? I'm receiving them as of, and again, if I'm running these in January, but I want it to be for the prior year, I can manipulate these a little bit. Here I'm saying it's a 2025 receipt. I'm issuing it the current date. And what address do we want to send to? What salutation do we want to use? What email address do we want to send to, etc. And you also have the flexibility here to say, look at the contact rules on the account. If somebody has said that they don't want to receive a tax receipt, then we won't send it. Can't imagine why they would do that, but it is possible. Or we can say only include people who have opted into tax receipts by email, because maybe I don't assume people want them emailed. I only email them to the people who have opted into email tax receipts. That's actually what we did at my old United Way. Then when I submit that, okay, I have the option before I submit to save. And where that's helpful is next time I can go and I can run my email opt-in option up here. I can run that and send those all off. And then I can come back and I can run just generally for everybody else who hasn't gotten a receipt. And I can tell it instead I want those by paper. Okay. So in this case, this is a smaller group who have specifically asked for things to be emailed. So I'm going to run this one first. Once I have run my create receipts job and I've saved my parameters so that next time I go in, I can just choose that instead of remembering what all my selections are. I can go to receipts maintenance. And here's where I view all of the people who are eligible. Okay. Yes, I have a lot of duplicate accounts. Please don't judge me for that. It's a test database. Okay. So let's say I only want to receipt 2023. Well, that's not a great example. There's not much there. 2022. So I run it. I've only got these 4 people who opted into email. Okay. Before I actually issue my receipts, number one, I want to come over here and I want to check. Are there any weird typos in their address, in their name, etc.? Because if this is really messed up, remember, this is actually pulling into their receipt template and it's being emailed out. So there's no opportunity to go fix it after. So a couple things you can do. One, I can go to their account and fix it properly in their account. I do encourage you to do that. Then you can actually delete this account from here and rerun the receipt job to have them all repopulate. If you've got just one minor thing that you want to fix and you don't feel like deleting it and rerunning the receipt job, you can actually open this up and you can edit it right in this screen. So maybe I really have an issue with Drive being spelled out and we say that they need to be adjusted. Oh, it's not going to let me adjust it here. No, I would have to rerun it. I am incorrect. We can't, it won't let us do it here. Some of the functions do. So I would actually need to go to the account and make that change and then rerun it if I don't want this to pull into the receipts this way. So you want to make sure this table is up to date. I can also see here this person has said, actually, I don't want to be contacted. So I can just take that person right out. Okay. Then once I know my data is correct and I want to issue these receipts, okay, I'm going to go to issue and I'm going to issue them all. Oh, popped up on another screen. And again, another set of parameters. So here's the big difference here where it says produce a PDF versus send the tax receipt via email. I choose my template. Again, you can create your own template. And I submit. But again, if you are doing, customization here, I'm going to turn on that com log. I want to attach the PDF. So now I've told it I want to use the 2025 receipt tax letter. I am going to produce one PDF for all selected receipts because remember, if they don't have an email address, it's still going to create that PDF for me. I don't particularly love labels. I'd rather print my envelopes for those that I have to mail. But these are the people who opted into email. So if they have a valid email address right now, I'd really like it to email them out using this email template. Okay. Instead of remembering all the things I need to do again, I can save that parameter and I can say email opt-in. Now, next time, instead of having to set all of these manually, I can just come and choose that option and hit submit. That is actually going to then issue those receipts. Again, anybody who doesn't have an email address is going to pop up with that PDF that I can then go print. Once I've done that, I can go back now to my create receipts and I can run for everybody else who has said that they don't want to receive it by email or just hasn't opted into it. I submit. I go back to my list of receipts and I just choose everybody else who's still pending. Sorry, I just had a brainwave. I had it set on issued. That might be why it wasn't letting me edit their name here. Let me try it. No, still won't. Okay. I need to talk to somebody about that. Okay. So now I can go and I can reissue everything else. And I can have a different saved parameter where it is not emailing. It's just creating these PDFs for me. Okay. I suspect I have been talking in circles a little bit, that there might be some questions. Luke, anything that people have asked?
Yes, we have a question from Sarah here. Does the receipt selection date automatically populate, or do you have to put that date in?
Okay, so the receipt selection date will default to the day that you add the transaction. So if you're, doing a normal transaction, you don't need to worry about that at all. It's where you have special circumstances where a gift has come in, but you want to receipt them for a different date. Postal mail, especially over holidays or things like that, is a big one. January is where I see people use that the most. So when you're entering those transactions, even though the accounting and processing dates might be in January, you could manually override that on the transaction and enter a December 31st receipt date so that pulls in as a 2025 receipt. So those ones would be manual. Something populates on there automatically, but it'll be the day that you're entering the transactions as opposed to being able to change it manually. Yeah. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right. So we've created our templates. We ran the create receipts job to get this pending table. We've gone in, reviewed the data, cleaned up anybody we needed to, and reran it if necessary to get the updated data in here. And then we've gone and issued, again, using our saved parameters that we've established. Excuse me. And now those have gone out there. Okay. If I switch back to my PowerPoint, some other notes. We have a receipts dashboard. If you do not have that receipts dashboard, highly encourage you to go to user customization, file tab and dashboard maintenance, and say install from Andar. Okay. Oh, mine isn't connected. But there is a receipts dashboard that has been created that you can grab and install. Not sure why mine's not working right now. And that has everything that you need to actually run your receipts from a single dashboard. So do go grab that. It's beautiful. Nate created it. I love it. It's just not on this sample dashboard yet. And for some reason, I'm not connecting to our support center correctly. So, oh, and I wasn't sharing screen when I was doing that. BioTab and dashboard maintenance. Go grab that dashboard. Undoing and voiding a receipt. You are able to do that. That note did not get updated. And reissuing a receipt that has been lost, and consider e-receipts. So I'm going to switch and I'm going to show you what I was trying to show you without sharing my screen. Okay, back in my brain. BioTab and dashboard maintenance. If you go there and you say install from Andar, okay, you will see a list of all of the dashboards that you can grab from our support center. You no longer have to go there manually and download it and import it. It connects, but there is a receipt dashboard there that you can install. And again, it has the different reports, all the steps, and there's actually a nice little screen at the top that walks you through all about receipts. The next thing that I flagged there, I'm just trying to remember what the next one was. Undoing or voiding a receipt. So a couple ways that you can do that. Let me bring this back up. So if you have already issued your receipts, you have two different ways that you can go and undo them. If I go to finance and I go to my receipts maintenance and I look at my issued receipts, if for some reason, a Nessa's payment was declined by a credit card, okay? So our credit card company came back and said, oh, nope, couldn't go through, but her receipt was already issued because we already had the payment entered. You can undo that or void that. So void selected. That is going to mark that receipt as void in the database. Okay. Another time where I've seen that is, we ran the job to issue the receipts and then noticed a whole bunch of typos in the PDFs. We just voided all of them, reran the whole process, and recreated the PDFs without the typo that was in the template. So you can absolutely void or undo. Undo is where we're just going to undo it. We're going to reissue it. Void is where, hey, this receipt actually isn't a legitimate receipt. You can also issue a duplicate receipt. And if we go to the actual account of the person receiving the receipt, I go to finance, it's not in finance, it's under communications, and go to receipts. So here as well, I can undo or void right from the person's account, but there's also a duplicate. So if a nest reaches out and says, hey, I think you emailed me my receipt, but I can't find it, you can use this duplicate button and it will issue a duplicate of the exact same receipt. So it's the exact same receipt, but it's actually stamped as duplicate, okay? I'm not sure how big of a deal that is in the United States, but it's a huge issue in Canada. We have to track all of the duplicate receipts that we give so that people aren't double counting things on their taxes. So both in Andar and on the actual receipt itself, it is marked as duplicate. Okay, so that's important that you do that rather than just deleting and reissuing the original receipt. Okay. Then in my list, reissuing a receipt that has been lost, and consider e-receipting. So for e-receipting, there are some system preferences that you can turn on where the receipt will be issued automatically as soon as the payment is processed for donations that come through your website. Again, it just gives people that receipt in real time instead of having to wait until you run them monthly or annually, but completely up to you, depending on what works best for your organization. Good. So those are the ins and outs of receipting. I hope that my foggy brain didn't cause more confusion than it was worth for everybody. Any other questions that have come in, Luke, or anything that people would like to add?
Yeah, could you, just real quickly, could you go back through the instructions for adding the receipts dashboard?
Yes, absolutely. In here, before I do that, I'm going to turn on my services so that it'll actually show you where it is. Give me 1 second, because it was just showing a blank screen, which is not very helpful. Okay, start. Give that 1 second to load. All right, let me share that screen. From your main menu, you are going to go to User Customization, Bio tab, and Dashboard Maintenance. And then down in the bottom right corner, there's an Install from Andar button. We're going to hit that. For some reason, mine, it just won't pull it in. But from here, you should have a list of all of the dashboards that are available from our support center. You'll be able to just select the one that you want and hit Install, and it will automatically be added here. And when you come back to your dashboards, it will just show as one of your dashboard tabs automatically when you use that install function. So I'm not sure why mine isn't working right now. It somehow got disconnected from our support center, but super simple to go grab. So again, just that dashboard maintenance install from Andar, and I believe it's actually just called receipts dashboard. It has some really helpful information on there.